Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to help you get the most out of your grappling ability and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJBrick Podcast. I'm Joe. I'm here with my good buddies Byron and Gary, who I assume are doing just fine today. We're going to get their feedback on a quote we're going to start the show off with. When you realize you are no longer made of glass, you lose the desire to demonstrate that fragility in others. And that's by Chris. I'm not sure I'll say his last name right, but it looks like Atakas. And I'll ask Byron to put a link in the show notes. He's got a book out, The Tao of Jiu-Jitsu, where he drops little nuggets of wisdom like that. And maybe somebody would be interested in helping a fellow jiu-jitsu practitioner and businessman out. But anyway, when I read this quote, when you realize you're no longer made of glass, you lose the desire to demonstrate that fragility in others. I think that speaks to our ego in jiu-jitsu. And I've always maintained that the goal is not to have no ego, because ego is just part of our psychological makeup. But the goal is to have a healthy ego. And when you get past the point where you're afraid to tap out to a lower belt, or, you think you got to be the toughest guy in the gym. When you become secure enough in your jiu-jitsu journey and your abilities that those things are no longer important, then you grow and learn. And you don't feel the need to, you ever see a purple belt get tapped by a new blue belt, and then they destroy them for the rest of the round. They've got to prove that they're really better than that blue belt. And I just don't think that lends itself to building a great culture at your gym. So you get confident in where you're at, and then you don't feel the need to beat others down. What do you guys think?
I think I'm still made of glass. I notice I still get injured sometimes, so I'm still there. No, Joe, I do like what you said. We talk about ego all the time, but it's the healthy ego, like you said, you have to have. We have to have some sort of an ego. We can't just go in there like a wet blanket and I do absolutely nothing. But that's when you start learning. When you have that healthy ego and you can open your mind and not, as you said, not retaliate. Let's say you get tapped by a lower belt where you're definitely not learning anything. Because it's going to happen. We're all going to get tapped by lower belts but we're going to make a mistake, and somebody's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't even think it's necessarily making a mistake that led me to getting tapped out by lower belts. It's just like, I'm not going to, if I'm rolling with a lower belt, I don't need to constantly be like advancing my position to dominate the entire round and get a submission. I remember having rounds like that early on in jiu-jitsu. It's like the guy passes my guard, gets side control, I struggle, he gets mount, I struggle, he gets the choke, restart, repeat. Like, so one-directional, linear matches or not only matches but training sessions. Like, I had nothing. So I don't have any rounds like that with people who are less skilled than me. I want some back and forth every time. And sometimes you get a lower belt or somebody that is on my back, and I'm working, I'm trying to do my thing, and it's just like I'm too far behind the ball, 8-ball right now, and I'm going to get caught. This choke is going to get finished. And if I wanted to stop that from happening, it's too late. It's next time. I can't let this person ever get my back again. And I don't want to play that way. I want to be the type of teammate and training partner where we both get to have some action, some offense, some defense in every role I get. And sure, occasionally I get paired up with somebody who I'm mostly playing defense with. That's fine. I'm a black belt and I could handle that. But I don't want to just smash a blue belt or a white belt or a purple belt. Like, I want it to be an enjoyable role for both of us. I want us both to be, at one point in time, engaged in offense and also engaged in defense. And occasionally, it's the back position is probably the best one for it, but occasionally mount or you let some choke get sunk in a little too tight before you start defending it. I wouldn't call that a mistake. I just call that training.
Yeah, definitely just training. And, it also made me think about, does it really matter if you're a higher belt than somebody?
No.
I tell you, when you're rolling, there's not much difference between belts. I have let's say I go to no-gi. I'm rolling with a guy and, this guy's putting it to me and he's really good and there's no difference in game. And he tells me he's a purple belt. It's, in today's age, I don't think there's, huge gaps between belts.
It's belts are individualized. It's good to be that blue belt that can hang with most of the blue belts, but some blue belts are going to be super athletic and are going to be tapping out purple belts pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes. And some blue belts are going to be physically not gifted and going to be always struggling to hang out with those blue belts, but their game is going to advance and they're going to learn stuff and they're going to have their own journey. And they may never be like elite competition grade, blue belts, but that's their journey, and if you've got 10 other things on your plate, and work and family and all these other things are taking all your time, you can't compete with the kid who's 17, got his blue belt and has wrestled his entire life or done a bunch of judo. That's your journey, accept it and do the best with what you got. Yeah. We're not made of glass, but sometimes it feels like it too, Joe.
Yep.
So good quote there. And I'll put a link to his website. Today's overall topic, we're going to disagree, or as Joe talked about before the show, put some more nuance to some popular ideas in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it'll be a good discussion. We have, three of us here. And so I think we'll be good at representing both sides of these topics as we go through them. And I want to, one thing that drives me crazy in anytime someone's debating somebody is they straw man the other person's argument, and then they destroy that. I don't want to do that with things. I've never liked that. I need to be able to represent what this idea is about and then pick at that. I don't want it to put up a weak representation of one of these ideas and then pick that apart. I don't think that's a healthy discussion. So I encourage you guys to disagree with me, but I'll let you know you're totally wrong.
I'll disagree with you, all right?
I agree to that.
Yeah, I have a couple that aren't on your list that I'd like to throw in at some point, and I have a feeling at least one of them you guys might disagree with me a little bit, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, I want to give a quick plug to our audio book, Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you're thinking about starting Jiu-Jitsu, or maybe you're kind of early on in the process of training, it's an audiobook made by me, and it will walk you through that first year of training. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's, $11.99, and I want you to avoid many of the common paths that will just lead you to wasting your time or frustration that I and many other people have made in their journeys. And I do think the book is well worth it. And I wish I had something like that when I started, just to kind of encourage me and get me going the right way and help me with some of these mental blocks that we're all going to have, especially early on in jiu-jitsu. So check it out. There's a link in the show notes to the shop. And from there, you'll find that and a couple other audiobooks. And they go to support the show. The other way we support the show is our Patreon account. If you want to support us on a per episode basis, check that out. And we do have some incentives and rewards for supporting us on Patreon. And it's never been an easier time to do that financially, because we're only producing about one episode a month as we switch to this new format. And so a lot of our Patreon supporters are supporting us with $1 a month, which is great. And hopefully if we ever produce more again, that they're still on board with, supporting us on a weekly basis or whatever we decide to do with this going forward. But that support is really important at this time, because we're producing less quantity of episodes. So each dollar is actually pretty impactful as far as keeping the website fees up and hosting stuff and podcast hosting stuff. There's a lot of stuff. Anyway, that's all out of the way now, because I usually forget to mention that till the very end. But yeah, we've got an off the mat lesson from our man Joe, and I don't know how you're going to begin this one, but it takes place in the water.
It does. if you've listened to the show for a while, you probably know that I work in the marine industry. I work for a company that provides transportation and getting tools and supplies to the offshore oil rigs. And I'm a captain by trade, but currently I'm in the safety department. And one of my jobs is to make safety flashes, little one-page documents that are easy to read, easy to digest, and just kind of remind guys of some safety topics. Keep the guys safe. And last week, last hitch, I did a you play the way you practice kind of thing. I used a sports analogy and kind of put together some observations I've made during some of our recent fire drills that I've attended, and identified some areas for improvement, and kind of tried to get the point across that when we drill, if you're not putting your SCBA on correctly and cinching it up correctly, if you're not getting your face mask on right, if you've got exposed skin, between your gloves and your fire jacket, that if you're doing that when you're drilling, you're probably going to do it during an actual emergency. And so my boss liked that one well enough. He said, hey, do one for man overboard and for abandoned ship as well. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try and keep to the sports analogy. And I heard something during a basketball game about 20 years ago that's always stuck with me. A point guard does a fancy dribbles, crossover between his legs, spin move, cuts a path through all 5 defenders. And then when he throws up the layup, he's underneath the basket and it just doinks off the rim. And one of the commentators said, boy, $1 million moves and a 5-cent finish. And and so I'm working on a document. The next one's going to be on man overboard, and I sent Byron and Gary a video of some guys drilling today. On our 300-foot ships, we've got a 15-foot outboard boat that can be launched overboard, and that's the most efficient way to get guys out of the water. In fact, when the Deepwater Horizon blew, one of our boats was there on scene, and they rescued 115 people that way. So
awesome.
Yeah. So those guys in that scenario had drilled adequately enough that it went off seamlessly, and they were able to get those guys out of the water and onto the bigger boats. But when you launch that rescue craft, it's a lot of extra work, and you introduce some risk in. Byron, are you getting that noise?
I got you sounding pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah,
anyway,
Joe. Yeah, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, there was some background noise. I don't know what it was, but anyway, back to the topic at hand. When you launch that rescue craft, you introduce some risk into the workplace. You're picking up a boat, you're swinging it overboard. The boat's kind of bouncing around. If it bounces off a handrail and somebody's got their hand on it, their hand's going to get smashed. And for those reasons, that portion of the drill is often just simulated and talked through, which is fine on occasion. But if you get kind of complacent and you just sort of talk through it week after week after week, then when I go down to observe the drill and I ask the guys to run through the whole scenario, I find I run in sometimes where it's not going too smooth because they're not practicing it weekly like would be ideal. So to drag this back onto the jiu-jitsu mats, I also see people drilling like sweeps, and coach says, hey, put a little resistance into it. And so your training partner puts a little resistance into it when you're trying to sweep them. But once you knock them off their base, then they start giving you less resistance. And I see a lot of people not drill all the way through until they come up into a dominant position. They sort of do 3/4 of the sweep and then go back to the guard. And then they do 3/4 of the sweep the next way. And they're not following up all the way. And I see the same thing with submissions sometimes, like with chokes. Guy gets both grips in, he starts to apply just a little bit of pressure, and his training partner taps. And so then he does the drill again, and his training partner taps as soon as he starts applying the pressure. You need to let your training partner slowly sink that choke in until you feel the need to tap. And that's where they fine tune all the details. I mean, I've drilled with guys, and they get that choke in, and you can hear them grunting and straining, and they're like, "No choke." I'm like, "Nope." And they pull harder, and they're like, "No choke." Nope. And so then we start to, troubleshoot a little bit. Try getting deeper grips. Try flaring your wrists. Try pulling me closer to you and not just pulling with your arms. And if I just tap the minute they started applying pressure, they're not going to figure those fine details out. And when we're doing the sweeps, once you knock me on my side, I just kind of give up and you don't fight for the top. Then when it's a competitive situation and you try and sweep a guy and he goes wounded cougar mode on you, you're going to end up just back in the guard again. So my advice, drill all the way through the technique. Yeah,
that's a good one. And it's a good kind of story. And I can relate to that as well. Like you're going to perform like you train at best. You're not going to, the phrase is you don't rise to your expectations, you fall down to your level of training. It's when pressure's put on you, when stress is put on you, you don't necessarily do better, and you can't rely on doing better to perform better. You might, that adrenaline rush might kick in and you might perform better. But if part of the task you're performing is mental and you have to think about problems and solve them, you're not going to perform better. Adrenaline doesn't help you solve problems mentally better. Like it'll help you lift something that's heavy maybe, or do something faster, or endure something longer. But in jiu-jitsu, a lot of this is mental, and it's, you have to, I agree. You have to train to a way, like if every time I'm working on let's just say a Darce choke, because that's a fairly common one. The people get the mechanism down, but and it's uncomfortable, it hurts to, if Gary and I want to train Darce chokes, and he's going to legitimately choke me 20 times in our, in this, while we're training this technique, I'm going to be hurting when I go home. But if I never let him do even a couple of them until I'm like getting ready to go sleep, or, like get it in good, Gary, like lock it up and finish the Darce choke all the way to where he knows he has that part down. We're doing him a disservice at that point. But I also see a lot of value in not getting my neck cranked on for 20 minutes straight as he's working on his Darce choke. There's definitely that gray area there.
Yeah, well, like I said on the boats, we're not going to launch that fast rescue craft every time we drill, but we need to do it on a regular enough basis so that everybody's familiar with it. Back to the original analogy, if you're really good at swinging for an armbar from closed guard, but you're not really good at finishing it, you just end up getting your guard passed half the time. So there's $1 million move and a 5-cent finish.
Ooh.
Gary likes it when you talk finance and numbers. You get his ooh and on.
No, but that is true. If you can't finish it, you're going to get passed. You're going to be in for a bad time, as they say on South Park.
Yeah, good example there, Joe, and that's one to live by. But you got to find that, like, hey, you don't have to launch the boat every time. Can most people in that? So Joe sent us a video kind of explaining, or we get to kind of watch this and understand what's happening, because it's a process. There's several, I would say, positions. One person's working this particular part of the machine. One's holding this rope over here. One is, supervising this. Like there's 6 guys in here launching this boat. Can most of the people switch jobs and still do, are they competent in the other positions, Joe?
Yeah, that's essential. It's something that we focus on because, if our ship hits another ship, there might likely be injuries on board, and you don't want the only guy that knows how to drive the boat or knows how to launch the boat to be one of the guys injured.
I got you. So that requires quite a bit more training than if everybody just has one position where they go and hey, my job is to hold this tag line over here and keep the boat from swinging way out. Okay, that's easy. I did that 5 times. Well, I don't know how to work that machine over there that actually works the motor or the pulley system. I got to learn that one now. But that does bring in a way bigger understanding to what's going on if you understand each role. Well, cool. Good. Thanks for sharing that, Joe.
Yep.
let's get down to disagreeing.
Let's call BS.
Let's call it where we see it. And I know, Joe, you have a few that we have a list we're working from. Joe's got a few extra ones. Gary, I would imagine we'll make up a few as we go. So just we'll generally run down the list, but if you see a spot to interject one, Joe, go for that. But the first one that we have here are that leg locks are just too dangerous. How do we feel about that?
Bull.
So Gary calls bull.
I'm going to give. So I do want to give these a fair assessment. You know, like, why do they say that? It's not just not true, which I would say that that's not true. But from the reason why they say that is we could take heel hooks or a leg lock, but most of them, a lot of the leg locks, like a knee bar, you don't feel a lot of pain until it's almost too late. And that, I think, brings the element of danger, is that you don't know, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what's going on, it doesn't hurt yet. And so you work and you work because you want to tap to it if it's not right. And then, pop, the leg lock completed its cycle and something snapped, That's an element of danger. And the other thing is, some of the leg locks require you to escape in a certain manner. Like heel hook is a good example. A lot of times you'll have to twist and spin out of it and extract your leg or get your knee past their knee. And if you spin the wrong way, you basically finish the leg lock for them. And so when you're doing that with somebody who doesn't know which way to spin, it's a very dangerous spot. But if you practice and you train them and you share knowledge and experience and training about how to do this safely, I think they're a safe thing. Gary, would you disagree with any of the dangerous parts of that?
I might disagree with you don't feel the pain until it's too late. I think that's kind of almost the same with any arm. You get me in an arm bar, as soon as I feel the pain, if I wait another second, you hip in, my arm could be, bent the wrong way. I don't know. I think you feel the pain about the same time. I think people just say that because if you do lose it, it's a big limb that is really going to mess your day up, where you can't walk and put you in maybe for an expensive surgery.
I think the straight ankle lock is a particularly painful
straight ankle
move.
lock hurts.
Yeah, that's a painful
quick
technique.
Yeah.
But you get somebody like Roy Delgado on your ankle, he's going to damage your foot.
Yeah.
But you get somebody like me, I could, if I haven't been working my leg locks for quite a while, but I'm going to be giving you quite a bit of pain and discomfort before I'm going to actually start to damage that foot. Those are two different leg locks. I mean, they're the same leg lock, same technique, but just the level of skill that he's applying to that is going to be damaging pretty quickly for me. Even if I try, I go at it hard, I'm unlikely to actually injure you because there's so much pain before I get to where I need to go. So yeah, I think the ankle's a particular thing, but how bad, have you been caught in a heel hook where it hurt, Gary?
Yes.
Have you really? Yep. And it didn't actually damage your knee?
No.
But it hurt.
I can tell you now with my main training partner, we go 100% on heel hooks. Byron, if you saw us train yesterday, you would have seen that. There were probably 20 heel hook finishes between us. But we also
actually physically, it was hurting.
Physically hurt.
Man.
Yeah. But we are in that spot. As soon as we get it, we put the pressure on, then we slow down. It's all about control. If I make a mistake and I don't clear the knee line and I try to turn too quick and I don't create space, I know my partner, as Joe was talking about in that first quote, my partner is going to release it so I don't hurt myself. He's skilled enough that, if I do make a mistake, he's going to let it happen. But it's funny, the progression. I personally think that I wish I never listened to leg locks hurt you when I started. But the good thing is it gave me a rebirth in jiu-jitsu because I didn't do leg locks for, say 10 years, probably even longer than that. And now it seems like once I got into leg locks, I really started loving it. But we kind of went down a path, where we just started out with straight ankle locks. Thank you, Rolly Delgado. And, I think that was the base. But, then we started moving into heel hooks. And the one thing I never liked when we first started doing heel hooks is I didn't know if I could really get out of one, because we had just put a little heel on and we wouldn't twist it or anything. And I'm like, can I get out of it? I don't know. And then as we kept going, we got better offensively, positioning, control, and defense. And, we started, really going a lot harder. And it has made a big difference in my confidence that, if I do get caught into one, as Joe was talking about again with the life lesson, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have been in that position before. Instead of just freaking out and just have adrenaline, I'm going to be a little more calm, know what the next steps to take, and hopefully take them. And, since I practice under duress.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment on your leg locks as far as your leg locks are superior to mine anyway. But even if I had the same initial heel hook to start with, and my heel hook was good, and your heel hook was the same, let's say 8 out of 8, 8 out of 10, like that's my move. And because I'm not going to train it as hard, what's going to happen next in a reliable way, and I have not gone down that path. So your follow-up, your second attack, your third attack, you have a series there where I have a heel hook that basically stops with either a finish or an escape. You always have, like when you entangle my legs, I don't know if the first one's going to get me, but I do know that the third one will. And usually the second one's good enough. Like there's not just one. There's going to be a couple of them if I could fend them off. And that's because you train them in a more realistic way, I think. Joe, do you have an opinion on leg locks being safe or dangerous?
No, but I think I would agree with you guys that this is one we can kind of call bull on. But I think there's a reason subconsciously why people believe this or why they abide by it. And that's because if you jack my shoulder up, even if I have to put it in a sling, I can, for the most part, go about my business the next day. But if my ACL gets blown out, I mean, if you can't walk, that's, to me, having a limp and not being able to walk is a much bigger price to pay than having my arm in a sling for a while. And so from that standpoint, not that you're more likely to get injured, but the injury might be more impactful on your daily life. Do you guys think – Go ahead, Joe. Or Gary, sorry.
I was going to say I agree with Joe. I think that's one of the big things. And, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I do think that's one of the big things. It's a bigger nuance to life, and could be very expensive injury.
Do you guys think that some coaches, and I say some, of course some will, there's millions of, many thousands of coaches, but is it a common thing for a coach to tell new students that they're too dangerous just because the coach doesn't want the top player to not be passing the guard? Is that a thing?
I do believe that. I think that is very smart. And, let me go back to say I wish I never listened to that when I first started. I'd like to take some of that back because I personally think, because when I first started, I had more of an ego. I wanted the tap versus today, where I think I would have fell back for some crappy ankle lock that was totally garbage and I would have ended up getting passed. But I do personally believe that too, that you do need to learn. I think you do need to learn to pass guard. It's very, very important, and I think more important than learning ankle locks.
The cool thing is that the better your guard passing is, the better your leg attacks from top will be as well. Because if you're guard passing, if you're like a 3 out of 10 and my guard's a 8 out of 10, you're not going to really pass my guard. So the leg lock, I'll see that coming. You won't put me in danger first. But if your guard passing is 10, and I'm 8 on my guard, defense, I have to actively try to stop you from passing my guard constantly. And then I'll be doing that while you're attacking my foot. I need to be defending my foot, but I also have a very good threat of you just passing my guard. So the better, if you want to get good at attacking the feet from the top position, guard passing position, I think first, get a good couple of guard passes. And then find a place where those attacks fit into those guard passes. Because, yeah, guard passing is super important. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a common thing for coaches to say, oh, they're just too dangerous. And really they're saying, you need to learn how to pass the guard first. I don't want to see you messing around with feet if you don't even know how to pass a guard.
Yeah, well, the Louisiana culture here where I train, leg attacks are pretty much wide open from the day you start jiu-jitsu. So I haven't heard any of the coaches around here or any of the brown or black belts use the excuse of it's too dangerous, but I have heard them tell white and blue belts, I don't want to see you doing any more foot locks for a while, because they get into that. As soon as they break the guard, the first thing they do is fall back for leg lock. We had one white belt here that was heel hooking everybody, upper belts, the whole 9 yards. And it's like, yeah, you're really good at that. You got that one thing down. You're really good at it, but it's the only part of your game that is advancing. So you need to leave it alone for a little while and work on some other things. And he did. And, he's a blue belt now and he's a good grappler and a good guy. But yeah, he had to kind of shut down the leg locks for a little while.
And the cool thing is you can bring those back. Yeah. You don't want to
he's always got it.
Yeah. You don't want to be that blue belt or purple belt who has totally neglected guard passing. Like, that's a big part of the game. You need to have some guard passes that are good. Let's go down the list here. And I know Gary has an opinion about this one. Takedowns are not safe for old people. Or a little bit older. Or seasoned people. Gary, I apologize. I've already offended the man. He's very sensitive.
Thank you. Elderly abuse.
But it's a young man's game or young person's game to be working a lot on takedowns. And so Gary and I each have like a little grappling bubble. He's got his training partner. I got mine. And I watched Gary and his training partner on the other side of the mats work takedowns for a lot, and they've been doing that for a long time. So you don't feel that they're not safe?
No, that was another one, though, I prescribed to. I had always heard, and to be honest, I live by it. I did the same thing as I did with jiu-jitsu, or with leg locks, I'm sorry. I didn't practice takedowns till later in life. And it's funny because all I like to do now is takedowns and leg locks. And Byron will attest to it. I'll go 2 hours straight of doing just takedowns. Whoever gets a takedown, the other person gets right back up, and then we just go full blast. And I can honestly say I've now been doing that for probably 4 years. Maybe 3 years. I haven't had an injury from doing it, So, it takes practice and drilling, and I think if you're in the right positions and your technique's good, you're gonna be in a lot better position.
So, guys, what are the more common injuries that you've seen as a result of takedowns, or why do you think this one has persisted?
I think you can see a lot of injuries with the knees. I can tell you, I had been grappling for probably 3 months, and I think this is probably one of the reasons I was so scared of it too, besides being told that takedowns were dangerous. I'd been training about 3 months, and my instructor has one guy with boxing gloves on, and my job was to come and take him down. And to be honest, I didn't know a single takedown. I had no clue. And I was getting punched while trying to take him down. So I ended up on the back. I tried to do that little trip takedown, but my leg was over my opponent's leg when I pulled him to the side, and I just felt his leg just cave in when I did it. And, I still remember that grotesque feeling to this day that, I destroyed somebody's leg. And, I think that, majorly scared me, and along with all the stuff I heard. So I can tell you, I've hurt somebody pretty bad with a takedown.
Yeah, I saw a leg break that sounds kind of similar to that, and it was one guy attempting a trip considerably larger than the other guy, and the guy just fought it probably longer than he should. I guess sometimes you just have to concede the takedown rather than get your leg broke. But
well, the crazy thing is I never have done that takedown again, and I started using it about 6 months ago. I was so afraid of it, because of what I did, even though it's a basic takedown. But now, when I grab a single, a lot of times, somebody's got really good pressure on my head or a whizzer. So I've been coming up and, taking the back and throwing that, and finally started using that takedown again and drilling it. So I'm going to be safe. But now it's become one of my favorite takedowns when, I got a single and I can't cut the corner and finish. I'm, or get the leg lifted to finish. So I'm coming up to the back and using that trip. So it did come full circle, and now I'm confident with it. But it was a bad day in my jiu-jitsu experience.
Yeah, that's always been one of my favorite takedowns, and I partly because I've always viewed it as something I could do safely without a lot of impact to myself or my training partner. I'll throw this out here, guys. Maybe the most dangerous thing about takedowns is that they're not taught well enough or practiced often enough. Yep,
I think it's a big thing. A lot of us jiu-jitsu guys, we like to get on the ground. We like to finish. That's what we like to do. And I know that when Byron and I first trained, we started every round on the ground. And I know there's we've talked about this before, a lot of gyms, space-wise too. You don't have, enough space for everybody to start standing. And, there's another avenue where you can get hurt during takedowns is, when the gym's really crowded and, people falling over each other. And I remember way back, and might have been the first Ultimate Fighter show. I don't know if it was the first or second or what, but it was one of the early ones. But Nate Quarry was standing up with a guy, and somebody took somebody down, and they fell into Nate Quarry's legs, and he was out of the tournament. So you can have an injury that way too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a big one. Good, interesting point, Joe, about not being taught properly. I think on this one, your training partners is very important. If you're less experienced about takedowns, get somebody who has experience that doesn't want to just destroy you, who will be that training partner that works with you, who will let you get a properly executed takedown, who will do a couple on you and give you that back and forth you need. That's big. The other thing about takedowns is they are explosive for the most part, where, Gary's locking up a triangle choke. At what point am I likely to get injured during the triangle choke? I don't know. None.
When you fall asleep, you don't know what's going to happen to you while you're out.
Yeah, that's true. I've been put to sleep by a triangle choke. Yeah. So, but the takedown, it does have two people falling, or landing at least, and you could mess up your shoulder or landing funny or whatever. But I do agree they can be done safely. Should two new people be drilling takedowns super hard? Probably not the most safe way to train.
True.
I think. It's like two people learn how to box. They're gonna beat each other up so badly, but are they gonna learn how to box? No. You need to have at least somebody that could kind of regulate the training and be helping with that. And that's I watch you do your takedowns, Gary, and you guys talk quite a bit. You comment about what just happened. You analyze it and you go back and the cool thing is you won't do the same takedown necessarily like right away, but that one's going to come up again within a few minutes, and you're going to.
I only got like 2 takedowns, Byron. So, and I'm serious.
But they can be unsafe. I think like with a lot of that stuff, it's your training partner. If you have a training partner who's attacking your legs and could care less if you're going to walk tomorrow, that's super dangerous.
You don't want to train.
Don't deal with that. Same thing if they're doing the Kimura and they don't care if you're in a sling tonight. Like, that person's not a safe training partner. If I do my takedown or a throw, and I can care less where you land or how you land, that's just a recipe for injuring people. Joe, how about training like a minimum of blank times? Like we hear a lot, 3 times a week in order to get better at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, this is one where I'm not calling BS as much as offering some nuance, because I used to hear this battered around the internet and on podcasts, 8-10 years ago commonly. And it was like, if you've been training for a little bit and you've achieved some level of competency, you got to go at least 2 times a week just to kind of maintain where you are and hope for the smallest bit of progress. 3 times a week, that's ideal. But a lot has changed in the last 8 or 10 years. We've gotten a lot better at understanding how solo drills at home can benefit your jiu-jitsu. 10 years ago, there was dozens of instructionals available that you could get. There are literally hundreds of them now. I mean, you can find instructionals that it's almost like they were made just for you. They're just perfect for where you're at progression-wise. They're perfect for the game that you play. So you combine those 2 things, and I think you can do some things at home. If you're in a position where you can only train 5 or 6 times a month, I think you can still make progress even at that. And another thing that's changed, I don't know about where you guys train, but in Lake Jackson, my gym's open all day long, and you're welcome to go in any time. And like the noon classes are only an hour, but you literally can go in an hour early. You can do solo drills. You can get good and warmed up. Somebody else is likely to show up a half hour early. You can get some rolling in, and then people stay routinely for an hour after class and do some troubleshooting and, maybe a little bit more rolling. That's a lot more constructive jiu-jitsu in one visit to the gym than I think we used to get. I think it was really common 8 or 10 years ago. You show up 10 minutes before class, you do your class, the coach is ready to lock up and go home, and so that's it. So I think you still need 3 times a week. What would that be? Depending on your class length, that'd be 4 to 6 hours of concentration on jiu-jitsu. I still think that's true. I just don't think that it all has to be done in the gym anymore. If for some reason you can't get there 3 times a week, I think you can supplement it outside and make up for some of what you're missing.
You break it down by the hours. Let's just say hour-long class, how much that time is actually good growth and development time for your jiu-jitsu? You might say, the rolling time. Okay, maybe you're working on your leg locks, and so how much of your rolling game is leg lock oriented? Half of it, if you're like, that seems like a lot. So it boils down to a few minutes of getting that. So specific training and positional sparring are big on getting that time to just balloon into to be a lot more. And I would take I do think that there's, for most people, getting in there a few times a week is really important. But you could, it's just what you do with the time that's important also. And if you just go in, you zone out during the technique portion, you kind of go through the motions, you don't really pay attention. They're not good. These aren't my good techniques anyway. And then during rolling, a third of it is oriented where you want to be. That's not a great training session as far as I'd take 1 training session over 3 of those where you were focused during the technique portion, and during the rolling or the sparring session, you were in the positions you wanted to be in more. And maybe you partnered up with somebody who was good at what you're working on and really developed your game there. Once a week is better than 3 lazy sessions where you didn't put anything into it.
I know I've told this story before, but, I had probably a year where I could only train once a week. And during that time, I really thought I was going to suffer. The one thing about training 1 day a week is I was so excited to train. There was no way I was going to miss it. I came in ready to go and didn't waste any time. But the other thing I did is, I'd been training for a while, so I had a base of knowledge. But I really didn't try to learn anything new that time. Really, all I did was come in and spar at open mat and just tried to get better at the things I already knew. I knew that if I was trying to learn new stuff, I wouldn't have time to drill it properly and to get it into my game. But I do think I got better in that year. But even if I didn't get better, who cares? I was, doing jiu-jitsu, doing something fun once a week, getting exercise. And, my goal at that point was to have fun, and I was doing it. I can look at, another sport, playing basketball. I know a lot of people who play pickup basketball one day a week, and, they get better, but they have fun. And, it's better than not doing it. And I think we do keep people from signing up for jiu-jitsu because they think you read stuff that you have to train 3, 4, 5 days a week to get any good at it. If you can only train one, I still say do it. You're going to have fun. And who knows, maybe your schedule opens up 6 months later where you can train 2 or 3 days a week and, then use that to your advantage.
Gary, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the reason I wanted this one on the list. Is I don't want to see people quit jiu-jitsu because they hit a stretch. Maybe they've got 3 kids between 1st and 7th grade, and they're like, I just can't make it in more than once a week. I might as well quit. No, keep going, because life's going to change. It'll open up at some point. And I'm really glad you brought that up. I was also going to add that another thing that I think has changed in the last 10 years is coaches are getting smarter in the way they put classes together and the way they teach. And I don't think it was very uncommon in the past for coaches to just kind of, what do I teach today? Let's see. What do you guys want to learn, kind of thing. I think it's more common now for them to have a month-long, a 6-month-long, a year-long plan that they stick to. And I just think, just like we're getting better as jiu-jitsu athletes, I think coaches are getting better at what they do as well.
Yeah, another good point. I agree, Joe.
I think from the coach's point of view, you put yourself in their shoes. The 3 times a week student that becomes a once a week student is kind of getting close to being a not coming back student. Like it's trending in that direction. So it's like, no, you got to get in here more. Don't push them too hard, guys, because they're still coming in. But that's what happens. People just quit altogether. But it's common for that 3 times a week student to go to once a week to find something else to do with their time. They're definitely like, you go 3 times a week, you pay a monthly fee. You go once a week, you pay the same fee. Like, you're not getting as good a deal as you used to get. You're getting a third of the training. And I think coaches need to tackle this on a individual, personal basis each time. Like, what happened? You used to be getting here every other day, and now you're in here once a week, and in that conversation, you might really get some insight. And maybe that once a week is the best day of the week, and you push them to it's once a week is nothing. You're wasting your time. That's the wrong conversation, I would say, most of the time. So like Joe says, nuance, like hitting that with a hammer. No, it needs to be tackled with a more precision instrument, and learn about your students, care about them, and take care of them. And if something changes like that, and so it's not the person who comes in day one, hey, I'm going to make it once a week. I'm only going to train on Fridays. That's my only day I can. The coach knows what to expect. And sure, you'd probably advance quicker if you were 3 times a week. But that's what you could do. That's what you're doing. But it's the students that get kind of scary. It's like, you used to be here all the time, and now I'm lucky to see you once a week. They know they're getting ready to lose that customer, that student, that member of the jiu-jitsu family. They're getting ready to find something else. And I think they try to scare them sometimes into getting in there more. And you push them too hard, they're going to go away. How about the one of you can't get better without competing?
Byron, did you get better last year?
Interesting you say that, because it's been a rough year for my jiu-jitsu.
That's why I said last year. I'm not talking 2020. I'm not talking 2000.
As a blanket statement, that's just false. You're going to get better without competing. I do think you sharpen the axe. You kind of tone things up. You figure out your game plan better. I think it accelerates your getting better most of the time if you do compete, but it's not essential at all.
I also wonder, because I know a lot of people and I sort of had this philosophy, although I missed it at purple belt, but I don't think I competed at purple belt. But I thought everybody should compete at least once at each belt level. I don't necessarily disagree with that. You don't have to, but I don't necessarily disagree that it's a good idea. But I'm not sure you learn a lot from competing if that's the way you compete. I wonder if the people that really learn a lot from competing are the ones that do, 3 tournaments in a 4 or 5 month period of time.
Yeah.
Because you kind of learn from your mistakes, right? You go into a tournament and you look at what you did well and you look at what you didn't do well, and then you start preparing for the next tournament and implementing some of those things. And then you get to test immediately whether or not your fixes worked and, go that route. I think if you compete once a year, there may be some benefit, but not nearly to the same extent as somebody that competes on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think you do get different things out of that. Go ahead, Gary.
I think the competing part, I'm with what you said, Byron. You're going to get better just by training, but I also think the people who, like Joe was just saying, compete a lot. I think one of the reasons that they may get better faster is, like Joe said, they're troubleshooting stuff. They're always in competition mode. Like, if I'm going to do a tournament, I'm probably going to spend a couple months beforehand working out harder, making sure I spend more time in the gym, go from 1 day a week per se to 3 or 4 days a week. So I'm getting that extra time. I think that might be one of the reasons why, if you are competing, you are getting better, is because you're putting in, more time. And as you said earlier, Byron, if you make use of that time, you are going to learn at a different rate.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Gary just uncovered the secret. Is it the competitions that are helping you get better, or is it the fact that you're training 4 or 5 times a week?
Which goes against what we said last one.
Yeah, because most people that are competing 3 or 4 times in a 4 or 5 month period, they're taking their training serious, a lot more serious than a casual guy like me.
Yeah, you see those people training, and you're like, I look over at them, I'm like, man, those guys are crazy. But they're always in that competition mode. They're getting ready for something else, and props, working hard and trying to better themselves.
Yeah, I think if I had a tournament in 2 months, and it's been years since I competed, I would immediately start figuring out, okay, what's going to be a game plan? How am I going to get to this particular position from the start of the match? How am I going to advance to get to that spot? What submissions am I going to apply? How am I going to manage points and not get behind on points? What kind of attacks are common that I have to deal with? Like, I would immediately start thinking about jiu-jitsu a lot differently. And I think by the end of the process, I would have a more tight game.
Yeah.
I mean, my COVID training partner has been my wife, and it's kind of been more of a coaching experience that I've had, or an instructing experience, and I would have to take into account, okay, what techniques would be able to drill with her that I could be able to do against a black belt. Like that's an interesting problem to try to solve. I don't know if I could solve that problem, but it would be an interesting way to think about training.
One thing I think about, and I bring basketball into this all the time, is that was my first sport. But, in basketball, I mean, there's so many of us that we just get together, once or twice a week or noontime for lunch and just play pickup basketball. And to me, that's like going to class and doing the sparring at the end. And we're still getting better at it. If we get a team together and we get in a league, then, to me, that's like a tournament atmosphere to me. But, most people just do pickup basketball and they get better. And, what I've always said about pickup basketball versus, doing a league, the cool thing is I can play 6 games, versus a league. We got a 20-minute running clock with subs, and, I might only get 20 minutes of work and then we go home. That's, but I do think you can get better without doing the actual tournament. But, every little thing is going to help you get better. I think if you do a tournament, it could accelerate your your gains.
Yeah, I do see the we always talk about the blue belt blues. Like people get the blue belt and they quit shortly after that because the next goal is so far away. I often will worry about people who compete and they haven't actually just totally like, I don't know what the right word, the falling in love with jiu-jitsu, or they're like, I want to compete. Well, if it doesn't go well, I think that person the day after the tournament goes miserably. If that happens, they might not show up again. That might be the end of their jiu-jitsu journey. And so I'm always a little cautious to look at particularly a new person who has a bad tournament or tournament that didn't work out well for them. Like, I don't want that person to quit. That a tournament when you're white belt or blue belt doesn't really mean much, 10 years later. Who cares? It's just part of your experience. But it means a lot that day, and it means a lot the next day, and maybe they second-guess themselves. And so tournaments don't always even help you, because I think that there is a degree that will quit after a tournament. And that's up to the coaches to help kind of watch that and watch for that, and hey, maybe this is a good tournament for you, or hey, maybe you should go watch and see, like, versus go get in there, because if it goes poorly, this student may not be back. How about the idea that you need to get in shape before you start jiu-jitsu?
Man, how many times have we heard that one?
17 times, Gary.
I've heard it 18. But, that's the number one excuse I've heard for not starting classes. And, what I always tell people is you will get in shape doing jiu-jitsu. And what I found is before I started jiu-jitsu, I thought I was in good shape. I was working out all the time, and I walked into a jiu-jitsu class and, went through the warm-ups and, the drills, and, was kind of tired, but nothing major. But until we got to that live rolling, I don't care. You can't simulate it. You're going to get in shape by doing it. It's a different type of shape. And, I don't know if you'll ever get in the shape you need to get into to start it. So just do it, and it'll slowly come.
Yeah, and this isn't one I've ever heard anybody throw around as conventional wisdom, like that's something you should do. But Gary, you're right. It's commonly you hear people ask the question, I want to start jiu-jitsu, but I'm in horrible shape. What can I do to get in shape first? And you're right. Jiu-jitsu conditioning is just different than any other kind of conditioning you can try and develop outside the gym.
And, we talk about we want to grow jiu-jitsu, and we're going to hear people we talk about jiu-jitsu. If I like what Byron always says, if somebody asks you that question, they're interested. If they're talking to you about jiu-jitsu, ask questions, they're interested. And if they tell you they're not in shape, they want to get in shape, they are interested. They're just afraid to, have hesitations about crossing that line. And I think it's up to us to, as Byron has talked about numerous times, how to be a good training partner and to get that person there. Maybe we pick that person up. We meet them in the parking lot. We walk in with them. We introduce them to people. We show them around everybody. We do drills with this person. We show them the drills. When it comes to sparring, we're their first sparring partner. We hand them off to somebody else who will take good care of them. Like, we don't really want them going with that person who's going to, as Joe says, comes out like a wounded cougar.
He's always saying that.
Yeah. But we need to take care of this person so that they will have a good time and they will come back. If they just go in and day one, it's, full blast, 100% sparring, there's a good chance they're not going to come back. And then they think they made a mistake. They needed to get in better shape, and they'll be, wow, I can never get in this kind of shape.
Yeah, I think that the person who says that and is not using that for an excuse, because that's hey, Gary's been bugging me to try jiu-jitsu forever, and you know what, Gary, I'm just not in good enough shape right now. Maybe later. Like, that's just an excuse. I just don't want to do it. And that's what excuse I gave. But if I actually want to, and that's what I come out with, is I'm not in good enough shape to do this yet. First, and then I actually go get in better shape to go train. Like, that person wanted to train the whole time. What do they think this is? I mean, it's not Fight Club. You don't need to walk in there.
People do think it's Fight Club.
I know, that's the problem. It's like, come in there out of shape, and guess what? You're still going to suck at jiu-jitsu even if you're in good shape. Like, nobody is, as a new person, especially if you're out of shape, no one's sizing you up and thinking, oh, he's going to be a good one to beat up on. Like, that's not real. They're like, oh, this guy, maybe he's cool. Oh, he's a nice guy, or he's got a good sense of humor. Like, nobody expects you to be good at jiu-jitsu if you're starting, even if you're in good shape, even if you're in bad shape. Like, who cares if you're in good shape? It's like, oh, you're flexible. You're still going to suck at jiu-jitsu if you're new. Like, that's fine. Get in there and get some, and be interesting and a fun person to train with, and they're going to love you for that. But get in there and think that you have to be something that you're not, great to start with, or in good shape. People don't care. You're going to suck at jiu-jitsu when you start. That's just part of the process.
If you're listening and you're not an interesting and fun person, we're still going to love you.
We'll even have you on the show, right, Gary? That's that's Gary's main thing is he can't figure out.
Yeah. No, I like that one because I've heard it so many times, and I just I just wish we could get people over that threshold sometimes.
I always try to decipher, is it their actual like excuse and concern, or are they just telling me they don't want to go, and that's the first thing that pops up is like, well, I would, but I'm in bad shape.
Yeah.
Or do they have actual interest, and would they train if they were in good shape? Well, they need to get in today because it doesn't matter. Before
I started training, I remember reading Grappling Magazine and doing some of their workouts. Like, I used to hit weights a lot, but I'd do a set of bench press and I would do 10 burpees. I'd do a set of bench press, 10 burpees. Like I was trying to get in better shape before I went. And then I also had the other thing that I thought it was like Fight Club. I didn't have anybody to walk me into the gym and introduce me around and, to help me with my misconceptions. I really thought I was walking into Fight Club and I needed to be in better shape.
Yeah. And if you think that's what it's going to be, you'd want to be in shape to walk into that.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think the sell is it's not going to be that crazy. Come in and we're going to learn some techniques, and maybe you get to drill a little bit with me, and you're gonna have a good time. You don't need to be in shape to do that, do you? So going down the list here, pulling guard is for wimps, or it's not good jiu-jitsu, whatever you want to say. I don't know. Pulling guard, it's lazy, it's sloppy. I've heard that from some pretty legitimate coaches. Any strong opinions on this one, guys?
I'll go first. To be honest, I don't believe it. Guard, in my opinion, I have no problem with guard. It's a position. Some people are really, really good in the guard. So why not get somewhere where you're really, really good at? For me, it kind of made me realize I need to have better stand-up, because I would get into guard and have everything nullified, and it's like, man, I need to be in top position. But man, I've been in some people's guards that, I don't like being in. I'd almost just pull that guy into mount and feeling like I'm in a better position. And it's a position. So they're in a position. If they like it, go right to it. I don't think it makes fun to watch for people who don't enjoy jiu-jitsu. You take somebody who is a wrestler, somebody who's never watched the sport before, and they see two people touch hands and one guy goes straight to guard and butt scooting. It may not be the most pleasure to watch, but to me, as somebody who enjoys the art, I like to see it play out.
Yeah, I think it's fun to watch Gordon Ryan grapple. Gary?
Yeah. Elijah Carlton. I love watching those guys.
Yeah. So that's my simple killer on this one. If you think it's a weak jiu-jitsu, tell Gordon Ryan his jiu-jitsu is crappy. Like, he pulls guard a lot, and he devastates with his guard.
But you know what I love about Gordon Ryan? You look at him when he went against, he went against PD3, and he went against, was it Zane Rutherford or somebody else from Penn State? Man, I love it. He tried to stand up with those guys. I respect that. Gordon Ryan, he's incredible.
I think well, I don't think pulling guard is for wimps. I think everybody needs to have a couple of ways to get the fight to the ground if you think you're a ground fighter. And, pulling guard is a viable way to get the fight to the ground. If you're training for self-defense, your guard pulls should not be all sleeve and collar grip dependent necessarily. But when it comes to like competitive jiu-jitsu, I love watching guys that pull guard right into a sweep or an attack. You know, that's a whole different level. And I think if you're a guard puller, that's kind of where you should be aiming, you know, not pull guard and then sort of be in a just a securing the guard position for a minute. Man, if you can pull right into a sweep or right into an arm bar or something, I think that's fun to watch.
Yeah, that's a good one, Joe. It's just with the self-defense thing. I think that's the with the coaches that have a problem with pulling guard. It's if you want to consider this a martial art, you probably should have a way to get on top from standing. Bare minimum against an untrained opponent, which is not that hard to do. Like you're working your arm bars against people who know how to defend arm bars. That's tough, but you could do it. I mean, people get arm bars, right? As a listener, you're able to get a submission on somebody who is trained to defend that submission. Same thing with a takedown. You should be able to do a takedown on somebody who's trained some. And if you do that, doing a takedown on a person who hasn't trained to defend a takedown, it's cake. So just to neglect that part of your game, just because I don't think that if you want to have this as a self-defense, it's so much easier to defend yourself from the top position than from the bottom. But that being said, you know, any guard players are still going to put the person to sleep within a few seconds. Like, untrained opponents are nothing. Like, that's not even an issue. If you can't triangle somebody pretty much within 30 seconds, like, that's not much training to require to do that.
All right, Byron, I'm going to call bullshit on you.
Okay, good. This work is good.
Yes.
No, one of them that I had that wasn't on your list that I wanted to throw in here, I've heard this over and over and over, that any decent blue belt would just destroy an untrained opponent in a fight. And I think that needs a bit more nuance to it.
I'll give you that.
And the reason is 15 years ago, if you were a blue belt and you sold a guy a car and he drove off and then it died and he thought you ripped him off and he comes back ready to fight, the odds of him having a clue of what you were doing when you started implementing jiu-jitsu into the fight, I mean, the odds are pretty high he would not have a clue. I don't think that guy exists so much anymore. I think the guy that's going to come back and pick a fight with you has probably been watching the UFC for 15 years. He's been getting in fights when he was in high school. He's been getting in fights since then. He's tangled with other guys that have known jiu-jitsu. He's got the benefit of all the commentary when he's watching the UFC. He's got the benefit of having watched Tito Ortiz learn how to strike from within somebody's guard. And maybe he even took a 1-month trial at a UFC gym. So I just don't think your odds of actually running into that completely untrained guy, I don't know if it's there. And the other thing I think has changed in the last 10 or 15 years since that was a very popular saying, and it still is 15 years ago, I don't think you went to very many jiu-jitsu gyms where you didn't put on some gloves once in a while and throw some punches. And I think today it's really common to train jiu-jitsu without ever throwing punches. And they say you lose a belt level when you get punched in the mouth, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. So if you want to be that good blue belt that can beat any untrained guy easily, you might want to take a punch now and then and throw a punch now and then, and you might want to not be too overconfident because that quote unquote untrained guy may have a lot more skill than you give him credit for.
Okay, to swing back at you, okay. I do agree that the training has changed over the years, and we're doing. Like Gary described it already. With this, he had to do takedowns to get somebody who had gloves on, and they were hitting him, and he had no takedown experience. That's early jiu-jitsu, and that was way more common. I haven't seen that for years.
Yep.
But the idea how bad the untrained are, they're just horrible, and I get more experience with this than most. I help the police recruits learn ground fighting, and so I get 20 or 40 people, you know that are young. Most of them are decently athletic, and they know this is a physical job, and they're just not good at jiu-jitsu. Like watching UFC doesn't help you. Like, it lets you identify the positions, but a blue belt would annihilate any of these recruits. Like it's not. And so here's the other part. Here's the thing that I agree. Like you have to knock them out. So if the blue belt gets knocked out, it's game over. But if you can't knock out the blue belt, eventually they're going to win this thing. Like so anytime you watch a fight on, like if one of those videos that there's a million of online or whatever, anytime that there's a position change where they roll over, that happens. You know what I mean, Joe? Like they're kind of rolling around on the ground and one gets to punch it and then they roll a little bit more and they let punches a little bit. Like any position change is game over for the blue belt. They win. So the person was sweepable. The person they lost top position. If either one of those people had trained, they would have won it easily. Because you're watching two people just lose position so easily. And I don't think the blue belt would do as well as they probably thought they were going to do. They'd probably get maybe a broken nose or bloodied up or something like that, and it would suck because that's not what they've been training for. It's not, that was actually kind of sucky. But unless they get knocked out, I don't know how they're losing this thing.
Well, I would agree with you that any blue belt would be able to survive a fight and probably end up the victor. But that's different than completely destroying an untrained person.
True.
If you come out of it with a broken nose and a bloody lip and a concussion, you may have prevailed.
Did you win?
Yeah.
Yeah. It does depend on the person and what's your game, and yeah. But having that takedown in your back pocket makes a big difference to how that fight starts.
Yeah.
Or same thing if you I don't know, I'd take the white belt with 6 months that did 3 months of boxing. Man, that's gonna be someone who'll perform a lot better.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just so many variables here, and we're obviously trying to assume that the attacker is of similar size and strength that the person, because any size difference is going to play a factor as well. But if you're that blue belt who's a small person who likes to train with the big people quite a bit, the size won't be a big deal. But if you're that blue belt who's 140 and you don't play into anybody who's over 150, and you got somebody who's 200 pounds who's mad at you, you better hope you double knotted your shoes, because you're going to do some running. Like
double knotted your shoes.
I hope my shoes come untied every time I run if I don't double knot them.
So Byron, you're saying size does matter.
Absolutely, Gary.
That's what she said.
It's funny, I'm doing this episode. I'm working on this episode for about Kimura, and the Gracies claim that that size of the opponent doesn't matter. If you look back and you read the text and what they talk about it, like it totally matters. Like if Joe outweighs me by 20 pounds. And I fight him to a draw, I win that because he was bigger and stronger than me, and he couldn't finish. Like that's saying nothing more than weight is the biggest factor in that fight. Like that's a common thing that they would say. So their argument that the smaller person should be able to beat the bigger person, like back in the 50s and earlier on, it was the biggest factor, was for the smaller person to just not get beat was a victory. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, guys, here. So, I don't know. That one, what was that one? That was off of Pulling Guard. And good. I'm glad you brought that one in, Joe. And I do think that most blue belts can handle themselves well in a street fight. But the problem is, my problem with that is, are they more likely to be in the street fight versus decline it or escape and not have the fight at all? Like, if having the blue belt makes you more likely to fight, that's probably a mistake. You're engaging in a super dangerous activity.
I personally think since I started training, I'm a lot less apt to get in a fight and more apt to walk away from it. Use verbal judo to get me out of it. Where before that ego would have, kicked in, and I'd want to fight. And I can tell you today, you come up to me, you start trouble with me, I'm going to do everything in my power to walk away.
Yep, I would agree. I think there's very few. I can envision very few circumstances I don't think I could talk my way out of.
Yep, and then if I do have to go, I'm pulling guard.
Yep, taking a leg home with you, right?
You've been working takedowns for so long, Gary.
I'm butt scooting.
It's more just confusing for them. What are you doing?
Yeah,
yeah.
That dude's gonna get up and run.
Oh man. Let's see. So here's another idea that some coaches don't roll with students, or sometimes the coaches get tapped out by a student. Like, how cool or not cool is that?
I think there's nothing wrong at all at getting tapped out by a student. We talked about it earlier. Anybody can get tapped out. I think I would take that as a sign of I'm a pretty freaking good coach. My people are tapping me out.
How about the coach is not rolling?
I have trouble with that. Not the coach is not rolling. I have trouble with people, and I think I'm probably in the minority here. I hear everybody saying coach has to roll. I just grew up playing basketball, and let's take a look at any wrestling. You look at John Smith at Oklahoma State. I see him running a practice. He's not rolling with people. Basketball, Jimmy Boeheim's not in there. Well, he's 75 years old. He's not in there running 5-on-5 with his team. I don't know. I kind of, the first coach we ever had, Byron, he used to just sit and critique us while we're rolling. And I personally thought that was great. I learned a lot. Let's say my coach is rolling. I'm not getting that feedback while I'm rolling. So I don't know. I kind of would almost want a coach who's not rolling with us. I mean, on occasions, get out there and roll. But, I think of a John Danaher. I see him running his practices, and he's walking around the room, critiquing people, making sure people are doing stuff right. I think that would definitely help my game.
Yeah, he's the big example.
What was that?
He's the Danaher's the big example. He doesn't roll. He and that's a bug. I think it's a feature. I think he's using that to his advantage. It's for me the biggest thing is I want my coach to love jiu-jitsu. And so like Jake Fox rolls a lot, like to a detriment of his body sometimes. Like he's like, man, I'm rolling too much. I mean, but when the timer's on, he's having a great time. He's rolling with somebody. Like I want my coach to have that passion. And so when a coach is like, when they're bored with it, or there's nobody fun to roll with, and they don't want to roll.
But does that mean they don't have passion because they're not rolling? Maybe they have a passion to make you better.
Maybe
they want to watch.
Yeah, that's true. You got a good point, Gary. But I worry that when you hear a coach doesn't actually roll or do jiu-jitsu, like that to me is the heart of jiu-jitsu. That's the funnest part of jiu-jitsu is rolling. And if the coach is stepping out of that, I worry that they're just doing this because that's what they've always done. But that may I can't read their minds. That may not be the case at all, but that's a concern. And you're right, Gary. When a coach is rolling, they do give up control of the class. They give up control of the class usually to nobody, and so nobody's supervising the class. Nobody's coaching. Nobody's giving input, and that's a negative.
What other sport has coaches participating in practice
or expects it?
Yeah,
maybe bowling.
And I mean, I'm not saying. Yeah,
I don't know about bowling.
I've thought about this numerous times, and I just think about when jiu-jitsu started. A lot of these guys are 22, 24-year-old guys trying to make it to the UFC or to the Pan Ams, and they still need to train themselves, but they're trying to make money. And they need to get their training in. But I don't know. I just I trying to think of another sport where the coach actually trains, in practice.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gary. Something I would add is that when you look at other sports and you look at the guys currently coaching, and then you look back on their careers, they weren't necessarily the greatest players.
Right.
And so it's not that they were great athletes, but they're passionate about all the mental work that goes into game planning and coaching, and they get excited about seeing other people get better. And I think so this kind of goes to the coach maybe getting tapped by students. I think the goal of the coach really should be to teach the students well enough that they can learn to tap him. And I just also don't think the coach has to be the best athlete in the room either. I mean, it's great if they are, but I don't know that they have to be.
Yeah.
Good point.
So Jake Fox, he routinely will say, I don't know how many black belts we have at the gym. I should know that. 6 of us or so. Like, he'll routinely say, I'm the worst one. He just says that. I don't believe that at all. But he wants to compliment the other black belts, and he's like, yeah. Like he had a guy come in a while back and say, some other gym said that you're not the best coach in town, the best black belt in town. He goes, I'm not even the best black belt in the gym. Like, just give it away. Like, who cares? Like, if that's what you're worried about. But there's so many other things to coaching than being good at the actual act, and you guys are nailing that one. And that's one of the other things we have on the list is athletes are great to learn from. They sure can be, but they're not always. The act of doing and the act of teaching something are different a lot of times. And some athletes are good at teachers, but many of them, this stuff is super easy for them to pick up and to learn and to incorporate into their game. And because, I'm not as coordinated as they are, I'm not as smooth as they are, it's hard for them to teach a guy like me the techniques that they're good at. And so I want to learn from a good coach more often than a good athlete.
Just going back to you saying that guy said you're not even the
Isn't
best.
Isn't that funny?
Like, I don't know. That just stuff like that drives me crazy when somebody tries to put somebody else down. If you're going to come into my gym, I'm going to tout the benefits to our gym. I'm not going to trash other people. And I'm that guy. As soon as you start going and trashing other people, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think me and you kind of talked a little bit about this maybe yesterday, Byron. The person, is immature, or I don't know what word you said, but not necessarily immature, but
Garryish?
Not confident,
arrogant.
Yeah, it's
Garryish.
Just, I don't know. That just doesn't work for me. And just hearing that just kind of really POs me, I guess.
But look how Jake took it.
Yeah,
he answered with humor.
Great. And that's the type of person I would want to train with. But it just, maybe too, because he's a good buddy of mine. I'm riled up over it. It's funny. I'm a very loyal person.
He I'll tell you what, he loves that story. It's funny.
Yeah.
Like, look at this guy comes in here and tell me I'm not the best the best black belt in Wichita. Yeah. He's like, I'm not even the best black belt in my gym. Like, I'm not going to dispute that.
That's the coach I would want to go.
I know.
I want to have a coach that, as we were talking about, that teaches me to tap him out, that teaches me to be better than that person. And, that should be the goal of the coach, to get everybody better than me. It's just like our kids. We want our kids to be better than me, which isn't very hard in my lineage, but that's what we want.
Byron, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Not something to call BS on, but you just mentioned that there's multiple black belts at your gym, and while we were preparing for this episode, a thought crossed my mind, and that is it time to quit referring to blue belts as upper belts? As if there's white belts and then that's where the break is and everybody else is upper belts. I wonder if that came from back in the day when you'd have maybe a purple belt teaching and 1 or 2 blue belts in class and a whole bunch of white belts. I mean, you don't call everybody
who graduated high school.
What's that?
Like, everybody who graduated high school is being well educated.
Exactly. Yeah. If you lived in the little house on the prairie days in a small community and everybody had an average education up to the 3rd or 4th grade, then 5th grader's an upperclassman. But as the community grows and as the education system grows and pretty soon you're K through 12, then a 5th or 6th grader is no longer considered an upperclassman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends.
I'm not advocating that we change the way we talk. It just seems kind of funny that that you wouldn't, when you say upper belt, you wouldn't now be talking about like the brown and the black belts, just because it's common to have a class with a black belt teaching and 2 or 3 other black belts participating in the class and a bunch of brown belts, and so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
I think it depends on each gym. If you're a gym that is run by a brown belt and there's 2 other purple belts and everybody else is blue or white belt, like you're gonna be gone for a day, you're gonna have one of the upper belts lead the class. Well, that's probably gonna be one of the like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a local thing where
I agree.
If you have 20 black belts at your gym and you say upper belt, you better be talking about one of them black belts.
But, exactly.
But if a coach has a relatively small gym, or maybe is just starting out and they refer to one of the upper belts, I don't know, that's not a blue belt. Like, you just have to kind of, I don't know if I use that. Do I say that? I guess it would be easy to tell if I say upper belts or colored belts or what, because we have hours of podcasting that I can go back and listen to that. I don't know how I say that term. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. Don't know, but there's just more and more, and that's great.
I only know one thing for sure, and that is that all cops should be at least a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
That would be nice.
You got to call BS on that?
Well, the word should, I guess.
Should. Yeah.
It's not going to happen. That's my. So I think Joe Rogan's the one that's been advocating this, and it's just like, it's not realistic. It's not even the best use of the cop's time as far as training goes. It's not. Okay, so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a sport. So in your journey to purple belt, you're going to learn deep half guard, or you're gonna learn a series of sweeps that counter their sweeps. You're going to learn stuff that's anti-jiu-jitsu. That's not necessary. The heart of the message is all cops should be able to handle themselves in a fight and not even necessarily be afraid to engage in a fight. And it takes away the adrenaline from your fight, especially at purple belt level. If a purple belt's in a fight with a untrained person, they could easily go through the whole arc of the fight, the start all the way through the most dangerous part to the finish, and not even have an adrenaline rush. I've had a couple of tussles at work, and
Byron,
and
what's your record in street
rushes.
Fights?
What was that?
What's your record in street fights?
Not as good as yours, my friend. No, I've just 3 or 4 times that we've had to wrestle somebody who was high, or who was wanting to hurt people, or attacking. One of them was attacking a paramedic. It's like, fight's over when it starts. It's starting
when you guys go in there and you got somebody like that, and next thing you know, Fireman Billy went in first, and you see him get thrown out. Fireman Joe goes in there and he gets thrown out. Do they all then just stand around and be like, "Hey, it's time to send the hammer in. Let's let Byron go," and you take care of it?
It's not. Nothing's like that.
Yep, Byron the Hammer Jabara.
No, but the idea of all cops should be purple belts is just showing how important jiu-jitsu is. I think it's a nice thing for a police officer to hear. Being a purple belt would be great for your job, and that's a lofty aspiration. But to legislate that, or to expect that to actually happen, is ridiculous.
Don't have the money.
Yeah, it's money, it's time. How many hours of training does it take to get a purple belt? I mean, I guess you
12.
can figure it out. Everybody trains 3 times a week. We discussed it. How many years does it take? Okay, have them clock in and train that, and learn all these techniques that a lot of them they're not going to use. I mean, you could probably boil down the stuff that's police relevant to about 20 techniques, and they're going to. That's not a purple belt. If you're just doing the 20 techniques that the cops do, good luck getting your blue belt. Maybe not. That's probably not true. But I don't. It's just it's money wise, it's not going to happen. Okay, let's just say it's 1,000 hours to get the purple belt. I have no idea what to calculate. Probably some of those hours, 1 or 500 of them, would be better off learning how to talk to people without pissing them off. That's an important skill. All cops should be able to talk to somebody and not piss them off. Can they all do it? Nope. All cops should be able to have a respectful conversation with somebody who is mad at them, who is scared of them. All cops should be able to calm somebody down. There's a lot of skills that these people have to learn. And to say that the biggest chunk should be jiu-jitsu, that's ridiculous. A purple belt is a highly skilled athlete who has dedicated years of their lives. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, even with the grappling, there's just so many more important aspects of what they need to learn, like you said, than doing deep half guard. They need to worry about, can they be in a tussle and keep their weapon secure? Can they be in a tussle and manipulate the handcuffs and get a person handcuffed? Those kind of things. So I would agree that grappling training is important, but the belt probably has zero to do with it.
Yeah, as soon as you put on that duty belt, it's clunky, it's heavy, it's hurting you as you're rolling on the ground doing your sweeps. Like, it's not what you do in a jiu-jitsu gym. It's not what you do to earn your purple belt. Like putting on the boxing gloves and having Gary try to take you down is not how Gary got his blue belt, but it was part of the game. Like it's just different. And we're not doing cop training, and cops doing jiu-jitsu makes them way more survivable, makes them less, scared to fight, and they fight like you say, you got to train how to do something to do it. But to say all cops should be purple belts, it's like you're living in Candyland, like everything's perfect. That would be great. Why not just take it further? All cops. So why would all cops not need to be a black belt? What's the reason for that? Just take the argument one step further, I guess 2 steps further. All cops should be black belts.
What about
because it's money? Because it's a ridiculous thing. Like,
yeah, if we're worried about that, how about all cops should be 2-stripe white belts?
Yeah,
think that would be better.
That's a couple steps down. But you can't even teach that in the recruit class, like in the academy.
Okay, how about 1-step white belts?
That's the magic spot.
1-stripe white belts.
You got to learn how to do it with the gi choke. Do all cops need to be psychologists?
Well, yeah, you got to do that too.
How much time do these and are they paid enough to be? Are you know what I mean? Like,
well, Byron, remember we're defunding police, so we don't have the money.
There's not enough purple belts in Wichita to man the police. If that was the only factor, and it's not even close, there's not enough purple belts in Wichita to protect the public.
Shoot, Byron, you'd be police chief.
right after Jake Fox, because he's the best.
Sweet.
No, it's just not a realistic thing. It would be. I think it's a cool thing, maybe to inspire cops to train. Like, I would tell a police officer flat out, if you get the purple belt, your proficiency at fighting will be through the roof. You're not going to be afraid to fight. You're not even get an adrenaline rush in 9 out of 10 fights. You're going to, a cool thing, social thing is people will know that your coworkers will respect your ability to fight, which is a thing for police. Like, you don't want to be the one that, like, okay, I'm in a fight I'm trying to arrest Gary. I'm in a fight with Gary. I'm Gary, and Joe shows up. So basically, it's still just me versus Gary because Joe's just going to sit there and watch. Like, some cops
Joe's
don't perform
critique,
well.
But he's going to coach on the sideline.
He's going to coach like
he's going to be like underhook, turn the hips.
You want that purple belt to show up to your fight, and boom, fight's over. It's not a fight; it's a controlled situation, and everyone's so much safer for that. And like, I agree, the bad guys would be safer if there was more jiu-jitsu done by police officers, but it's just a stupid goal. I think it falls apart when you take it to the next level. All cops should be black belts. Why not that, Joe Rogan? And then the same reasons he has why that wouldn't work are the same reason why I say all cops should be purple belts, because there's better time that they should be training. A lot of the techniques don't really matter. So, did I go on a good enough rant there, Joe, or do you still disagree with me?
You went on a rant.
I like it. You called bullshit on Joe Rogan.
I'm sure when he listens to this come Monday morning.
Yeah, but we are ranked higher than him as podcasts.
At jiu-jitsu category, which he talks about sometimes.
Yeah.
I understand it as a tool to motivate cops to train, but you can't legislate that.
I got to tell a funny story here. Before Byron became a fireman, he went on a ride along with one of our cop training buddies, and we had another cop training buddy, and another one of my buddies is a paramedic, and so Byron's riding with one of those guys, and my buddy, the paramedic, shows up at a scene, and I guess they don't go in bad situations till the cops get there. And he said, it sounded like this was going to be a kind of a hairy call, and he's like, next thing you know, a cop car shows up, and Bob and Byron get out, and then the other cop car shows up, and another one of our training buddies, Dave, gets out. And he's like, I had no problems going into that house with those guys as my backup. But think how it made somebody feel knowing 3 trained people, had his back.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that day. It was interesting. I'm glad I did it, but I became a fireman for a reason. But just break down the argument of the purple belt thing one more time. You have 1,000 hours of training. What % of them do you want them to be grappling? And what % do you want to be
13.
handling their weapon correctly, talking
17.
to people, clearing a building, dealing with, I like these numbers, Gary, dealing with like an active shooter situation. Active shooter and a black belt doesn't help you a bit. You got to be able to put that bullet where it needs to go to put that person down. Like, there's so many factors that make a good cop. And I think by the time you're at purple belt, you've over-categorized one and under-categorized some others. Unless they're doing it for a hobby because that's what they do on their time off and it's fun. That's different. That's a great officer that'll be able to support their team. But it's just not realistic. It's a joke.
What if you just watch John Wick 1 and 2 over and over again? Do you think that would help?
That would put that on a loop. You put 12 hours in on that probably.
Yeah.
A couple times. Here's one. I'd be interested. I don't know you guys' opinion on this. You can't teach heart, which I think is inside of a lot of gis. I don't even know if I want to say the brand. I think it's a hyperactive brand. You can't teach heart. Is that true?
No.
How do you teach heart, Joe?
By creating the right culture, setting the right example. So I guess if you use the word teach, it might be technically true. You can't teach heart, but you can inspire and you can create a culture that develops heart, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where do you get heart? I mean, because there are some people that are just flat out crazy. I mean, they destroy their shoulder and they'll keep training. Shoulder pops out, they'll keep training.
Is that heart?
Yeah.
I look at that as heart.
So
I mean,
I look at somebody who's maybe grappling against somebody who's better than them, or maybe in a tournament, the points that they're down, the points they're still fighting hard. They
don't give up.
Yeah, they don't. So Gary, you've mentioned it a lot on the podcast that when facing a tough day at work or a tough situation, you know that jiu-jitsu is tougher and the stuff you do on the mats is tougher than what you're doing at work. Did jiu-jitsu teach you heart in that?
I think I had it beforehand.
But so the whole point of jiu-jitsu making you more durable at work is a myth?
What I do at jiu-jitsu, there's nothing that's going to compare to being, grappling with you or Joe. The positions you guys are going to put me in. That's not a myth. It makes my life easier. But I think I had a heart before that. Like, I don't think
Gary, you were born with one. That's true.
What was that?
You were born with a heart. Sometimes you're Grinch-like, but
I just think I've never been the best athlete in anything I did, but I always kind of outworked people. I just dug down. I don't know how you get it though. How do you? There's always those people like that just never stop. That just work so hard. Where does that come from?
That comes from jiu-jitsu sometimes, Gary. That comes from jiu-jitsu. From getting tapped out, coming back to class, getting tapped out again, coming back to class, almost getting a submission, coming back to class, and eventually I've actually tapped somebody out the first time. It's been 6 months of training, and I finally got
how come
more.
Some do it and some don't, even if you do like the sport, but you don't come back? Okay, never mind. I see what you're getting at. That's true. Yeah.
I think it literally teaches you that your hard work will pay off, and it's good to struggle and try hard, even when it's likely to not work.
Okay.
And that's what hard is. Even if it's not likely to work, I still need to struggle and try my best.
You know what's cool about this? Because I didn't believe any of that till the way you just explained it, and it makes sense. That's cool. I learned something today. Thank you.
Well,
no,
thanks,
I'm serious. It's the way you explained it makes perfect sense to me. Thank you.
I would go one step further, and I don't like any of my teammates that have the gi that says you can't teach heart, whatever. But I could see it being kind of insulting to a coach. Like, that's what coaches do, is they teach you how to perform, how to act as a person. They develop your character. Like, you can't teach heart, right? Isn't that right, coach? You're not giving me this heart. I was born with it. Coach, every coach I've had has influenced the way I perform and who I am as a person in a positive way. Like, you can teach heart, and thank you, coach, for helping me develop a better, more durable attitude towards challenges I'm faced with. So thank you, coach, for helping you develop your heart. Don't tell them that they didn't help.
Hey, Gary, you said you came into jiu-jitsu with heart already, and I'm wondering if you didn't pick it up through something like basketball the exact same way. Early on, you go into basketball practice, and you're getting the picture that if I show up early and I work hard, I get better. And you're watching other guys that are inspiring you, and you're noticing this guy's 15 minutes early every day, and you notice this guy stays late every day to shoot. And so even though you're tired and you don't feel like you have it in you, you stay for 10 or 15 minutes and get in some extra work too. And through constantly repeating that, I think that's what develops heart. And a lot of it, I do believe, has to do with being inspired by those around you.
I agree, Joe. And it's funny because I never got that till Byron was talking about that. And, even while you guys were just talking after that, I kept thinking, my mind was wandering back and forth. But then I'm now 100% agree with it. I do think, your coaches, your parents, kind of inspire you to do that extra work. You do that extra work, and you just see how it pays off. And I do see it now.
And Garrett, you've coached basketball for your son's team, and you inherited a team that wasn't top performing. But let's just say the team was down 20-0 at half. Do you say, hey, guys, we're not going to win this. Let's pack it up and head home? Or do you say, what, guys?
Okay, I got a funny...
Do you say, guys, I want you to score 3 baskets at the last half of this game. We got this. Like that's what we're going to do. We're going to fight hard. We're going to do better than we did the first half. There's really no point to it. But we're going to get out there and make some baskets this round or cycle or whatever basketball has. They have rounds. Quarters, halves, periods. You get out there and you make the kids go play some more, and you maybe adjust the goals a little bit, but you're literally teaching them not to quit. You're teaching them heart, and that's a huge thing. And you've done it countless times with your team, Gary. I want to hear your story because I know it's going to be you teaching kids heart.
Well, it backfired, but
you did quit. Okay, well, tell that story.
We're getting smoked, and this team, is so much better than us. And I'm at a timeout. There's like 5 minutes left in the game, and I'm just like, come on, guys, just give it everything you have. Don't let these guys embarrass you. We can, just go and like with hard work, just give everything you got, and you can stay with it. All my kids are like mocking me behind my back, and they're just like, there's no way we can play with these guys, and they're too good. It doesn't matter how hard we play, and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. But I had 2 guys that would walk through fire. They never quit. And those 2 guys, even though I didn't reach everybody, those 2 guys all the time, they were probably 2 guys that weren't my best players, but they got a lot of playing time because of the attitude they had. They just gave 100% on everything they did. And man, I'm so proud of those 2, but I'll just never forget because, motivational speech like that, I was always that guy. I never was the best athlete, but I would just go out and put an elbow into you, put my body into you, give everything I had, and I was really big about never getting embarrassed. But these kids, I couldn't get through to them, and I tried.
I think if you would have recognized the ones that your 2 that kind of had maybe some natural heart, or that just wanted to go play hard, and said, hey, let's give a round of applause for James and Joe. Like they fought hard the entire game. And next time I want you all to be like they were doing. Maybe next time more kids would be that way. I don't know, but I think as a coach you could teach heart. even if some of the kids walk on with it and you still get destroyed. How about here's one that was more popular back in the day, the 10,000 hour rule. It's popularized by Anders Ericsson. He really talked about it a lot, and then Malcolm Gladwell did a book that mentioned that, and I think the jiu-jitsu community really gravitated towards that book, or the idea of 10,000 hours and you're one of the best.
Well, Gary mentioned Daniel Coyle, and we've all read his book, and he has things to say about the way that you practice, and I think that's really key. I think you can't just put a number on it without ignoring the fact that some practice is going to be more productive than others.
Yeah, and how are you practicing? I've seen people do the arm bar from the guard, just switching back and forth to the side, but total garbage, not controlling posture, not controlling the sleeve. And, what's that? Not practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect.
There you go. Yeah, 10,000 hours with 9,000 of being garbage isn't going to do anything for you. Yeah, but 10,000 good hours, or even 2 good hours today, that's great. I don't want to have to wait 10,000 hours to be proficient at something, and that's why, like in my audiobook, your first year, we're going to focus on a few things more or less, and get proficient at those, and find ways to keep bringing your game back to your strong points, and it's going to be a lot easier than just waiting till you get 10,000 hours, which is a lot of time in order to be decent at something. And their argument is world class, but I would argue that 10,000 hours doesn't make you world class at anything where people practice 20,000 hours. Like, it's just an arbitrary number that you kind of get the feel for how things work. But if everyone's practicing 10,000 hours, it doesn't mean anything. You have to practice smart. And that's what Joe is always advocate of, training smart.
Roger that.
Here's one that the way I would explain it, I'm on the fence, but I'm not on the fence on this one. That pressure is a submission, or a good submission. And I would say that I will absolutely tap, as a black belt, I will tap to pressure if I feel like it's going to injure me. Boom. Like, because I've had debates with people. I've had a conversation on the show or on other interviews I've done on other podcasts, like, oh, yeah, a blue belt should never tap to pressure. Yes, they will. Yes, they should. If somebody's going to break your ribs or break your jaw, get out of that by tapping. Like, that's perfectly fine. And as a black belt, I don't tap a lot to pressure, but I absolutely will. So I've been in a pretty... I've talked with Jake Fox about this, because he does like to tap people from pressure. And I used to like to tap people. It's very rewarding, especially a person who is... I'm about 170 pounds. If I get a 220-pound person and I get tapped in from pressure, as a purple belt, I love to do that. Brown belt, that was a fun thing to do. Black belt, I don't know. Maybe if they're a jerk. But to me, it's not a good submission. And Jake and I debate this sometimes, but I always have the killer of the debate, and I say, could a 120-pound person tap you with their pressure? And he says, nope, not going to tap. They likely lack the rib breaking pressure that he's worried about, and rib breaking, or he always draw enough air to continue to go. So he's not going to tap to that. Would Gordon Ryan be able to tap you with pressure? Yep, he agrees to that. Yeah, he would. He's a black belt. You know what? Black belt sometimes will tap to pressure. If it's Gordon Ryan wants to tap me to pressure, he would have no problem doing that. Like, that's not even that's not a thing. Could I tap Gordon Ryan with pressure? Nope. If Gordon Ryan just lays there and does nothing, could I tap him with pressure? I think no. I think the answer to that's no. I think he would be fine. Throw in any legitimate submission with that and have somebody, a top athlete, just lay there and ignore it. It would damage them. Rear naked choke, arm bar, leg lock, Kimura, whatever. Can Gordon Ryan just lay there and do nothing and ignore it? No. Those are all real legitimate submissions. His pressure, if it can be ignored, I think no. Any more to add on that one, guys? Because I've argued this one quite a bit with Jake. I think I know his counter arguments, and I think I presented them. But it's not a good submission. It's often just kind of mean. It may be fun, though.
I would agree with you that it's not a great submission or shouldn't be a go-to. And it kind of goes hand in hand with don't just use your strength or your size. But I would put a caveat in that I think sometimes big guys, they buy into the idea that it's not a good submission wholeheartedly. And so they try not to overpressure people, and they ignore a part of their game because pressure is important. You use pressure to get your opponent to react to expose an arm or their neck or something. And I've told a lot of big guys like white belts and stuff that I'm not feeling enough pressure. I'm not uncomfortable enough underneath you. And you're a big guy, you're strong. I'm not telling you to just use your strength and power or size, but I should feel uncomfortable underneath you.
Yeah. I'm not saying that pressure shouldn't be used. Like, pressure and a good guard pass is great. Pressure to get out of something is awesome. But there's a point in time when I'm applying pressure that I'm trying to submit you with it. And I'm not trying to pass your guard. I'm not trying to advance from side control to mount. I'm just saying you're not going to breathe anymore. And that's going to be my submission for this round. And I don't think that it's a good use of my time and efforts. And just because it's not... Anybody, an elite grappler, is just going to be able to ignore it. They're able to, they have a strong enough diaphragm, I guess, to breathe through that sort of thing. I don't know, but how to do that. But it's somewhat size dependent, but not even really that. It's just where you play. I've been smashed by Renato Tavares. Like, he's considerably lighter than me and a lot shorter. He's a small, framed guy. And I thought he had me in mount, and he was like smashing my face and my ribs and my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. I thought for real somebody was standing on him, and you guys were playing a joke on me. Like, that was just you. That was literally just you on top of me. I thought I was getting dogpiled by multiple people. It was insane amount of pressure. But could he get Berchetta to tap from pressure? No. It's not going to happen. I don't know. That's what I think a good submission should be able to be done regardless of size or strength, especially when you want to take it to the extreme that they don't even defend it. If Gordon Ryan lets me have his neck, doesn't do anything, and I get to do a rear naked choke, he will go to sleep. He's got a real neck. Like, I can never choke Gordon Ryan in real life, but undefended pressure, he could care less. And I could do pretty good amount of pressure. Anyway, we're going long here. Here's one. Kicking someone's butt, or like getting, like, I'm frustrated today, so I need to go jiu-jitsu and get my frustrations out on somebody. That's stupid. Anybody want to elaborate on that one or disagree with me?
Well, I think that's just you need to blow off some steam. You need to get some exercise.
But the idea that there needs to be a victim for that.
I don't think you don't need a victim. You can go to the gym and go for a run. I think that's what they're saying. I've said that before. I need to go take out some frustrations, and it's just something physical. I'm not looking to necessarily kick somebody's butt. I'm looking to get a good workout in and get my heart rate up and work hard.
Yeah,
burn some calories.
I think, and that's good, Gary. I totally agree with you. But I think some people will say, "Man, I've had a rough day. I'm going to go in there and
I don't want to train with that guy."
And Mike, I'm kicking Mike's butt, and that's going to make my day better.
I will not train with that person.
But when they do it, they go there. Mike's butt gets kicked. He smashes, tap him with pressure, and at the end of the day, I feel pretty good. But why do you feel good? Exactly, Gary nailed it. You worked out, you feel good. You hung out with your friends, that you feel good. You went through a class.
Have friends.
Yeah, if you didn't have friends by that point. But like, there doesn't need to be, nowhere in the equation does it need to be Mike got beat up. That doesn't change the quality of your day at all. It gives you the illusion that that's happening, that venting it on somebody else is the important part. But no, the process of exercising, the process of being the people who are your friends, that is what's getting rid of your bad day, not taking it out on somebody. That's ridiculous. Joe, anything to add on that one?
No, I agree with you guys 100%. And I especially agree with Gary.
Yeah, you'd be a jerk.
If you're coming in just to kick somebody's ass so you feel better, I don't want you part of our gym.
Yeah.
You got any other ones, Joe, or should we move on to the article of the week?
I think I snuck the ones in there I wanted to, so we're good.
All right. So this article is from BJJTribes.com. Check that out. It's the gentleman's name is Oliver. That's right. He sent me this link, and I enjoy it. This article. I like to help out other websites that do good jiu-jitsu stuff. So can anybody become a black belt? Is the title with a question mark. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Somehow you two made it, so.
And you're well on your way.
So I guess the answer is yes.
He starts off by talking about statistics and how rare it is even to get a blue belt. Purple belts, obviously each belt is going to be more rare than the last one because, to have been a purple belt, you also achieve the rank of blue belt. But so many people will quit before that blue belt standing. And he estimates, as far as numbers, roughly 1% of people that train jiu-jitsu will ever make it to the black belt level. And
would you think, though, Byron, that the numbers are more in your favor if you're not comparing what percentage of people get a blue belt, what percentage of people get a purple belt, what percentage of people get a brown belt, but what percentage of blue belts get a purple belt, and what percentage of purple belts get a brown belt?
Yeah.
I think the odds become more and more in your favor the further down the line you go.
That's true.
Like wouldn't you estimate that of all the people that get brown belt, that those that go on to black belt, that it's a pretty high percentage?
I would say very high. I mean, it could be 90% of brown belts get black belt.
Yeah, once you get that purple belt, for most of us, it's become sort of a way of life. We've learned to roll with the punches, so to speak, the ups and downs, and we've committed so much time and effort into it already that, I think once you get to be a purple belt, your odds increase dramatically. And brown belt,
that's exactly what he's showing here is that 1 in 10, so 10%, make it to blue belt. Half of the blue belts make it the purple belt. So we've already taken what was a 10% chance and made it half. And I don't know where it goes from there, but a lot of purple belts love jiu-jitsu. You don't get that far in jiu-jitsu without it becoming a lifestyle, without it becoming a part of who you are. So that's a good thing to look at. Once you're at blue belt, you've already done the biggest hurdle. That takes out 9 out of 10 people. But that's an interesting way to think of it, Joe. Some things he has in here about creating a game that will enhance your progression. Like that's an important thing. So I think around the purple belt level, you kind of develop your own jiu-jitsu a little bit. It becomes more of an art, a martial art, than just do this, then do this. That white belt, listen to your coach. They know what they're doing. They know a lot about jiu-jitsu. They are your best chance at getting personalized instruction wherever you are. Listen to your coach. The blue belt, listen to your coach. You're still working primarily from a cookie cutter style of jiu-jitsu. You're developing a game that you like. Those purple belts, you get a lot of time for creativity. You've developed a style and a type of game you like to play. At some point in time, you're going to know some stuff about your game that most don't know. And that might include your coach. Like, I have no problem, like, somebody asking me something about Kimuras and saying, you know what, you should ask this person because their Kimura game, even though they're a purple belt, they're going to have better answers for you than I will. My Kimura game's not that good. So yeah, it does become garbage, Gary. And he has the category, the bullet point in here. What if I don't compete? We talked about that earlier today. Can you get better without competing?
Yeah, it looks like he pretty much agrees with us.
Yeah.
Competing isn't for everyone. So, yep, you can get the... I wonder how common it is, though. I bet it's pretty uncommon to get the black belt without having at least a portion of time where you competed.
Yeah.
You think at some point most people catch the bug to want to give it a go?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
I think I had the biggest time I had that was earlier on, and it was just hard to find tournaments. I mean,
I don't know how it is in Wichita, but boy, and if you live in the Houston area between Houston and San Antonio and Austin, COVID's changed things up a little bit. But under normal circumstances, you can compete every weekend if you're willing to drive an hour or two.
Yeah, if I wanted to compete as a white belt, I don't think I competed it until I was a blue belt. But I had to drive 2 or 3 hours and get a hotel and like not easy. And I would have loved to compete as a white belt earlier before then. But like I did a no-gi division as an advanced student because I've been training it for a year and a half or 2. I don't remember. But like I would have loved to compete earlier. So those local tournaments, we just didn't have them back in the day. 2002, 2003, they just weren't there. But I think it's. I don't care less. I can care less if you compete. Yeah, that's a personal decision. If you want to compete, I'll be happy to help you game plan and keep track of point system as we're rolling and try to sweep you and get that on you. But if you don't want to compete, you want to come roll and train and be a good training partner and a amigo, and that's awesome. Happy to have you. How about fake black belts? He's got a couple chapters on that, or a couple paragraphs, not chapters.
For a while it was popular on YouTube or Facebook for people to go around calling out fake coaches or fake black belts. I never really liked that. I kind of thought some of it was overblown and
yeah,
not sure it's my place to be going and trying and call people out. Oh, you're not really a brown belt. You're not really a black belt. I don't know. What?
I don't know how I feel about it. Like the idea of making it a viral video probably isn't the best thing. But if you watch these videos, like, okay, who's being the jerk here? And it appears like the guy who's calling him out is being a jerk. Like, man, you're not a black belt. This is like. What happened? He sat through a whole class, saw nothing but garbage come out of this guy, and he's charging these students $100 a month to teach them not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like he does have. There are victims here that are paying for a service they're not getting. Put the belt that you actually are around your waist, and probably have to charge a little less. But you don't need to be lying to people who are paying you money. Like so, I don't know. I do feel like. They're not doing it necessarily just to be to pick on somebody. I think of it more as like a wolf dog, like they're protecting the students. Like, guys, just to know, he's not a black belt. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I feel about that. That's interesting. And I know we talked to Tim Sled about that, but it would be hard for me to go to a place where everyone's paying $100 a month and I go and I train and it's blaringly obvious that this person who's got the black belt on, who has never trained, like take to the extreme, like they don't even know how to do an armbar from the guard. Like they totally don't do that right at all. They don't even control the head. I don't know what they do. It's awful. It would be hard to not say something to the students because they are literally being victims here. But I don't want to be a jerk.
You guys see the video of Andriod Galvao clowning that black belt during a match?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what comes to mind. I'm watching it now. Yeah, he got in a match with a guy wearing a black belt, and the guy clearly was not a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He might have been a black belt in something else, but.
I haven't seen the video, so I want to watch that. But I would venture to say I could roll with Andriod Galvao and not look or feel like a black belt. Like it would be a disaster of my jiu-jitsu. And if that's what I'm going to be judged on, like that's not cool. But like I would at least not be doing the wrong things, but I wouldn't have anything for him. Like nothing would work. I would not complete one escape. But would I be trying to Kimura him while he's passing? No. Would I be doing the wrong thing entirely? No. Like he's got mount and I'm trying to choke him. Nope, not going to do that. That's not a black belt. But would he get mount in 30 seconds? Yeah, I think if he wanted it, he would have mount in 30 seconds. Like, I got to see the video because it sounds like he's bad, and it's clear that he doesn't.
I sent you the link.
Okay, but is it difference between like would he do the same thing to me, Joe? You've rolled with me. You've never rolled Andriod Gavo, but
this guy's in Andre's weight class too, which might make a difference. Isn't he considerably bigger than you?
Yeah, but any of those elite black belts would be able to just make me look like an idiot. I gotta believe that. I mean, I've rolled with some pretty good black belts, and to go a few minutes is really good.
Well, but this guy had to have done something to cause Andre to lose respect for him, because I don't think Andre is the type of person that would he clowns him for the length of the match as opposed to just submitting him in 20 seconds like he could have. So he obviously did something to lose Andre's respect.
Yeah,
and I think it was that Andre knew he wasn't a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I want to say maybe there's a backstory, like he was a black belt in I don't want to throw out another martial art and belittle it, but maybe he had a black belt in something else and just thought, I'll just wear my black belt here.
Yeah. Well, anytime you're a black belt in something else, you're like same guy. Put Andriod Gavo, have him wear a black belt in a karate tournament. He's not going to look like a black belt karate guy.
He's not allowed to take the guy down. He's just got to throw kicks and punches. Yeah,
that's not what we're doing. So,
what scares me, about these guys, I'm kind of with Joe. I don't know if I was thinking it wouldn't bother me, but the more I start thinking,
Gary, you cut out.
The more he thought about it, the more he didn't want to finish this podcast.
He found something better to do. I think he was getting ready to agree with you and disagree with me, but I don't know where I disagree with you at. Yeah, I see him clowning him now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm watching the video and the guy's just getting kind of pushed around, and he's frustrated with him. But I don't know. I don't know that he couldn't make me look like a total fool. Like I know he could. But I also would not jump into a black belt tournament where like I've never competed at Worlds, like the adult division or any division, but like I don't belong there. I know that. I think we did actually just lose Gary because he's not chiming back in.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what else we got left before we wrap this thing up, Joe? We've gone a little bit longer than usual. We appreciate everybody's support on Patreon. Check out the article. We'll put a link to BJJTribes.com on there, and you can check it out. And reality is, if you're training jiu-jitsu, if you've got the blue belt, you've already done the hardest thing. But the goal is not to get your black belt; is to get better as you're training, and the rest will just happen. But I've always seen people who want the goal of the black belt, especially earlier on. That's just so far away. Why set your goal out that far? Like, set your goal to get a better triangle choke. Hey, my sweep game could use some work. Get some better sweeps. Work on your takedowns this couple of months. Like, do that. The black belt will happen eventually. Don't stress it. Don't worry about it. Your next belt's around the corner. So, I think we got Gary back to hear microphone noises.
I'm back.
Let me guess, your battery died.
I don't know what happened.
Well, Gary, we're just wrapping things up here, and I want everybody, whether you're on the mats or doing some other workout, to stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
And train hard when you can. Train smart, and you will get better if you stick with it.
Always pull guard.
Always pull guard.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can visit our website at BjjBrick.com for more good times. Swing by and like our Facebook page. Our email is BjjBrick at gmail.com.